Welcome audience to another episode of Way of the Warrior. Appreciate you joining in with us. Today, I've got with me Sandra Wilson, and she is a certified nutrition and life coach. And what I want to do is I want to kind of take a step back today and find out what Sandra does, what got her to where she's at, and how she's impacting this world for good with that purpose in mind, right? Sandra, if you could tell the audience a little bit about what it is that you do and how you got to this place.
Okay. Sometimes I wonder myself because I did not know where I was going to be just maybe 3 years ago. I had no idea where I would be today at all. My life has changed so much. But I am a certified nutritional and life coach, and I decided to do that at age 57.
Wow.
Because that was a couple of years ago. So I was working in the wellness industry because health has always been number one on my list from the time I was a child. Was instilled in all of us by our parents, but it really stuck with me throughout my life. And I was a competitive gymnast, but that was when I was 14. So it was a long time ago. But health has always been something, and I always wanted to stay healthy. And I noticed in my 30s that I couldn't eat whatever I wanted anymore. And that was like, what the hell? Because I could always just eat and still remain thin. And then, but of course, as a woman, our hormones affect us more than men, and in a much shorter time. And so, because I started reading about it, going, what's going on with my body? What is that? And so I learned about food and what worked for me personally. And even as a nutrition coach, I never tell anybody what to eat, anything like that. It's because we're all different. And that's, but what I should just say, but what I specialize in right now, even though I started off doing nutrition coaching, is kind of grief and trauma coaching, because it just seemed to fit with my narrative, which is a lot of grief and trauma that has happened throughout my life, and how I've kind of come out on the other side, I think. But you never know what could happen tomorrow, right?
Absolutely.
I really want to help kind of get grief out there and talk about it more, because it can be kind of a taboo subject. I don't know why, but we all know we're going to die one day. We all know it as humans, and even animals know that they have a short time on this earth.
Preach.
So we obviously want to make the best of it, right?
Yeah.
But we don't talk about it. It's like, what do I say? You say, oh, I'm really sorry for what happened to you. But we have these weird let's do sentence number 3 and see if that works. And we don't really know. So I kind of want to get that stigma off of grief, because it's a natural thing. We all go through it. And I don't believe in the 5 to 7 stages of grief, because I went through 3 really major deaths in my life, and they were all so different. They were not the same. And I didn't feel all those stages with each one of them. And in fact, they were quite different. The first one that was really, we all know that our parents, the natural progression is your grandparents pass, and then your parents pass, and that's kind of the way we grew up, as that's normal.
Right.
So when my grandparents passed, of course it was tragic, but you kind of move on with your life, and you kind of go on with everything. When my brother was killed in a car accident, it was total shock, because for me, I was 22 at the time, and he was 12 years older than myself. And it was like, it was a joke. It wasn't real, because I used to wake up in the middle of the night going, it is real, because you just don't, your mind can't really comprehend a shocking death. Because I hadn't seen him in months. And then all of a sudden we had lunch 1 week exactly prior to his passing. And I was like, the gratefulness that I got from that stayed with me from that. Like, it changed who I was, because I was a pretty selfish, self-centered, promiscuous child in my 20s, in teens and 20s. And it was like, take life a little more seriously, because you never know, tomorrow you could be dead. like it's
Yeah.
it's a true fact. And just seeing how it changed my parents, because that was their firstborn child. Even though you have 5 kids at that time, that was their oldest child. So that's the one you make all the mistakes on, right? And that's the
Yeah.
one that's kind of like, and he was lit up a room when he came in and all that stuff. But he was an asshole too. Like he used to torture me. He used to torture me because I was the youngest. But that really kind of set the tone for my life, where I didn't want to waste time with people that didn't mean anything anymore. Like I actually went to the extreme of cutting people out that I probably should not have cut out, but you just
Okay.
kind of go, I have to make a change because this means too much to not change who you are. And so I tried to make meaning out of that passing. And I realized how kind of I was smart at that time, because I said, I can't, the pain is too much to not change something about you. So that was kind of a pivotal moment in my life. That was August 31st, 1987. Like, you don't forget those dates.
Yeah.
But just seeing how it changed my parents. My mom got cancer soon after that because she had lost another child before I was born. So losing children, I think, is probably the hardest passing that can happen. That's just my opinion. And I'm not a parent, and I never will be, as far as I know, because I'm 59. I don't have kids. I just have a dog. When I saw how my parents reacted to that, and my father was like, if you mention my brother's name to this day, my dad is 96 years old, he'll cry. Like it, and he was a man I never saw cry, except twice before that was when my maternal grandfather passed away. And actually, no, it was the second time. So that was the second time I ever saw my dad cry. And now he cries so easily because of that loss, even more so than when my mom passed away. So that's kind of where that came from. And then when my mom passed, my mom was truly my best friend at that time, because we talked about everything. And even though all of my siblings, they felt really close to my mom, like much closer than we do to my father, and continues to this day, even though he's still here. Only the good die young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it was a really tough one. But the wonderful gift of my mom's passing was that I was able to say goodbye to her, because she was sick, right?
Yeah.
My brother never got that closure. So that's what I'm saying, that there's different stages of death. There's different relationships of death. I believe that, losing a brother is different than losing a mother. And then, of course, the last one, my husband, which was probably the hardest one, because we had plans.
Yeah.
We had plans, and when somebody dies, those plans are no longer there. Like, you have to change everything. So that one was the most traumatic for me, because we were together for 22 years and he was not sick. He was fine. He was healthy physically. What I want to stress to everybody is what you think in your brain can manifest in your body. And we both agreed that that's basically what he did. Like, he was a tormented, tortured soul. I realize now, looking back on all the discussions that we had and how he was brought up. And he would say, his family may change, they may not believe that, but he believes he was brought up in an abusive household, where he used to see his brother getting beaten the shit out of by their dad. And he would kind of stand in the way sometimes. So it affected him. And he never really got over that stuff. And throughout our life, we had a really, really cushy life. He was a very talented salesperson, as am I, but I didn't work during that 20 some odd years we were together. And at one point in 2005, we bought our first beachfront home here in Cabo San Lucas. San Jose del Cabo. Most people know Cabo San Lucas, but I got a Cabo San Lucas shirt on. I bought a tourist top because I like the color. But so we were doing well, and sometimes when you're doing well, you kind of attract the wrong people into your life. And if you're not aware of it and you're just not thinking, you can just bring them in, draw them in. and a friend of 14 years got us involved in a deal, which we completely said, yeah, let's go for it, because there was a trust there, of course. And we loaned close to $100,000 to be a part of this much bigger deal with a promise of a payment back. And we said, look, even though we're doing well right now, if we don't get this money back in that allotted time that we had agreed upon, we are going to be in trouble, And he says, oh, no, don't worry, you'll be fine, and blah, blah, blah. So we trusted, but again, we are responsible for what we are, the decision that we made. But anyway, that was September of 2008, still waiting for that money. So that basically changed the trajectory of our life, but specifically for Daniel, because that was a betrayal.
Mm.
He considered a brother. Like, Daniel has had very few male friends. And there was maybe 3 male friends that he said, I love you. And men don't say that to each other. Like, I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up with I love you in my family. We just didn't do that. It was very patriarchal. And, the woman stays home and the guy works, and mom does all the stuff and looks after the kids, and no babysitters. Like, my mom did it all, right?
Old school.
Very old school, but they're old. They were from that generation, right? Yeah. So having said that, it was really hard on him, and he grew very angry inside. Like, he never, honestly, 5 arguments in 22 years. Like, we had such a fantastic relationship, and I think that's why it affected me so much at that time, because how am I going to find a guy like that again? Yeah. So, but the anger is a killer. It really is, because it doesn't affect the person that you're angry with. It just affects you. Right. So that happened in 2008. So throughout those years, we ended up borrowing against our cash paid house. And we actually had bought another beachfront condo 2 hours north of here as well, because we were doing so well, and we went in with a partner on that one. But we decided, because this land deal is going to come through and we are going to be millionaires, let's just borrow against this house and wait for that deal to come through. And even if it's a year or 2 years down the road, we can get by in that time. And so we borrowed against a cash paid house, which Daniel said he would never do, but we did. We borrowed $500,000. And within a few months, the bottom fell out of real estate here. I wasn't working. The only place that you can make money here, if you're non-Mexican, is real estate or timeshare. Daniel had been in timeshare for 18 years, and I hate to say this out loud, but it nearly killed him, because it's a very high stress, high pressure job. And he was great at it because he was a great salesperson, but it wears on you unless you're a drug addict or an alcoholic, which he didn't do either. But most of the people in that business are heavy duty into drugs. Like, they would always ask Daniel, like, what are you doing, like, to get the edge off? And he goes, nothing, but he took it all on inside. So having said that, we ended up losing everything in 2014. He couldn't hold off the dogs any longer. He tried, and that wore on him too, is trying to say, we're getting there. This deal's going to come through. He really believed this deal was going to come through. And I did for many years. And then I kind of go, we got to let that go. I'm good at letting things go. Thank God. I think that's why I'm so healthy, is I'm able to disassociate. Not deny. I'm not in denial about it. It's just, I think we were lied to.
I appreciate that clarification between the denial and disassociation. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can compartmentalize, but I don't deny that the reality of it. We were betrayed. We were lied to. Move on, because there's nothing you can do about it. When you have no control, you have to learn to let it go. If you hang on to that stuff, it will kill you. And I believe that's what killed Daniel. And just sort of see, I actually filmed 3 videos during his illness, which was devastating. He had ALS, which, if people don't know, I know it in Spanish, esclerosis lateral amyotrophica, but it's because I live in Mexico, so I had to explain it to so many people of what it is. It's basically eats your muscles away. So we noticed, and I have him on film, his like twitching started happening a couple of years prior to the first fall that he had. He would wake up in the middle of the night with a Charlie horse in his leg. Oh, like so painful that he would scream. It was that bad, but then it would go away. And you kind of ignore these things because there were so many other stresses in our life. It was like, let's just leave it off. And because he had a lot of serious back pain as well, he was very good at just kind of letting pain go because he was in pain 24/7. But the muscles just kept eating away, and he started to lose weight. He felt slurring starting. He asked me, am I slurring? And this was in 2016. And I go, I don't hear it, but he could feel something going on there. And a month later I said, yeah, I'm starting to hear some slurring. So of course, have to fix everything. I'm looking up all these, like, what could this be? It was two things. Myasthenia gravis or ALS, and he didn't want to hear ALS. So I looked at the one where his doctor cured himself of this ALS or this myasthenia gravis, and I had him contact Daniel, and he spoke to him up until the day he passed away. But for us, it was, he started falling from cane, walker, wheelchair within 1 year. Gone, lost about 60 pounds. He was probably 100 pounds when he passed away, all skin and bones.
Wow.
That was probably the most traumatic thing I've ever been through. Because, and it's also recent. Like when I talk about it, I see it because it was basically in a couple of weeks, it'll be 6 years exactly that happened. And because we lost everything, Trevor, we didn't have any money. Literally, like, it was so bad. We hadn't paid rent in almost 2 years. The owner was very generous to us to let us stay. But he was getting to the point where you got to go, Sandra. You got to go. And I said, look, this sounds really bad. I said, Daniel's going to be dead in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. He looked at me in shock because I was so brazen about it. But when you're living with somebody and he's telling you, I'm going to die soon, while texting me, because of course he couldn't talk by the end, or I couldn't understand him any longer. It was, as a matter of fact, like, it's bad. Like, and when people don't see you every day, they don't know what you're going through. They have no idea. And the stuff that I had to see and I had to do, I had to be the doctor, nurse, and everything. And once in a while, I had to bring a doctor in for things that I couldn't do. But trying to save money because I had to buy food. I had to feed him through a tube. So I had to whip everything up, like whipping chicken up with water and trying to get it down this tube and all that stuff. Wiping someone's butt that, and it was the most humiliating disease that I have ever seen. And I know he was humiliated by it. He didn't even want to pee in front of me in 22 years. Like, literally, he was that proud. Like, he just was like, I didn't care, because of women, we don't care about that stuff. But that was his pride, right? And so this disease, when you start to look a certain way, you start to look like skin and bones, like you're like a part of yourself that you've never seen before. And you lose your abilities to feed yourself. You lose your abilities to turn yourself over. I had to turn him over every hour. It's humiliating, but that was our life. The first time I had to wipe his butt, he was devastated. And I said, get used to it. And he says, no. And I said, get used to it. So that was PTSD, literally from that. Like, I'm holding back the tears right now because I cry usually when I talk about this, but I try not to. So anyway, he passed away, and I had to start my life over. I was 53 when he passed away. Wow. And I had to start over. And I was like, what am I going to do? Right. What am I going to do? I don't want to go into timeshare. I hated it. I was in timeshare for 3 months. I couldn't do it. I don't know how he did it for 18 years, but I couldn't do it. And to start in real estate, you have to have like a roster. You can't just go in and say, hey, I'm a real estate agent and make money. So I worked in an office job in a real estate company, and I was making $2 an hour. But you know what? First job I had in 20 years, I was moving forward in my life. I could bring my dog to work. I could walk to work. And an old friend, an old neighbor of ours, allowed me to stay in her place for a few $100s a month. So even though I wasn't making enough to support that, prior to that, people had a GoFundMe. So we had like a couple $1,000s, nothing major. Like I think they raised like $9,000, but Daniel was still alive at that time. So I had to, of course, pay for some medical stuff as well. But I was able to at least survive for a little bit. And for me, being kind of a glass half full, refillable type person, I, laughed, cried, whatever. But the owner of this apartment had been sitting empty for 5 years. Okay. So it was not occupied. So that's why she says, just give me a few $100s and stay there. But after being there almost 11 months, she says, I think I'm going to rent it out weekly now. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And because I was working in real estate at that time, I had been looking for a rental for a friend of mine who was also a single woman with a dog, and I couldn't find any place they wanted to rent to dogs. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what? So I wasn't like that. I was in shock. Like, I didn't say a word because I was literally thinking, I've been looking for 8 months for someone else who's in the same situation that I am. What am I going to do? I literally, Trevor, thought I was going to be living in my car. I thought, how am I going to shower? How am I going to eat? I can sleep. I can recline the chair. Boo has a seat right beside me. So, I'm literally thinking that because I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I am not the most social person. I'm an introvert. So I like a lot of people didn't even know like what was going on with Daniel because first of all, I was not going to invite people over to see what he looked like. It was bad, scary. I had to warn people that I invited over, like, prepare yourself because they saw Daniel when he was healthy and he did not look anything like himself any longer. Plus he couldn't do anything, right? So I was the protective, nurturing person that I am not normally. So because I was continuing to go to the coffee shop, which was Daniel's sanctuary, so I continued to go there because that was like my second family. And the owner of that coffee shop allowed me to have like free tea every day, and when Daniel was alive, he like free coffee for over that year, like
Wow.
free everything. Even though I was feeding it through a tube, like he wanted his coffee. Like that's how important his coffee was to him. He says, I want my coffee. And so I was doing it in a tube. Nobody, he's in his wheelchair. He's having his coffee. He's happy on his phone. Up until a week before he passed away, I was still wheeling him in. I was grabbing him and taking him out of the car myself. Like, I'm not a big person, but that's what he needed. And that's what I did. So anyway, I thought I was going to be living in my car. And then I talked to this owner of the cafe and I said, oh, where the hell I'm going to go? And she says, well, what about Ernesto? And I go, what about Ernesto? I was living in his house. I didn't pay him rent for 2 years. And what about Ernesto? She says, well, he has that property, close to the nurseries. And I said, yeah, I know that property. He has an apartment there. She goes, yeah. He asked me if I could find somebody to rent it from him. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And I've been living here for 4 years.
Look at you. That's awesome.
It's not fancy. It's like, going from a 3-bedroom beachfront, gorgeous luxury home to one room there was no kitchen here. Like I'm in my kitchen right now, but there was no kitchen. He built a kitchen within 3 months of me living here. I put food in my wine fridge that of course is not very cold. For 4 months, I was living with food in a wine fridge, a hot plate. But you know what? So grateful. Right now I'm looking at my fridge and I go, I have food in there. I'm not starving. I can pay my rent and I've turned my life around in 2 years. And I'm proud of myself for that. I'm a lot stronger than I thought. You never know how strong you are.
You know what? There's so many things that I'm going to go back through this and take so many notes. because I've learned so much just from your story. And I have to say this. Number one, when we talk about, when we think of the way of the warrior, like what you've just explained, like that just defines it right there. When we talk about going through growing pains, fires of refinement, all of those things, those are nice, fancy words for saying there's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of suck as it comes to trying to make our way through life, trying to get just to a place where we feel powerful, where we feel, hey, I've made it here. You know what? I'm me and I'm good with it. And I'm happy that I have food in the fridge. And I'm sitting here and thinking, to go from a low at the beginning of your life, talking about the death of your brother, other deaths that happened to taking a knee-jerk reaction because of that death and trimming some fat around your friends, right? Like, hey, I'm cutting bait, don't need you. And maybe it was a little too much because maybe you cut out some people that you thought, man, maybe I should have kept them around. But then to start to climb so low, start to climb up, get through that death, get through that process, realize how much you needed to embrace life for what it is and take it seriously. Climb. Hey, gonna be a millionaire. It's looking pretty, right? All the way up to what everybody in their head, all the entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, people that are like, I'm giving this every day. I'm gonna climb to the top and I'm gonna hit that dollar sign, bing, to free fall, Mayday. And it's all of a sudden rock fucking bottom. And I sit here and I'm just, I'm going back through my last week and I'm thinking, wow, there was times that I was complaining. There was times where I was like, man, this is kind of rough right now. And now I'm listening to your story and I'm sitting here going, when was the last time I walked by my fridge and went, God, I'm glad there's food in there. I'm actually excited and I'm happy that there's food in the fridge. So I appreciate the message that you're sending out in this through this dialogue. And it's simply that if I could sum it up in my head, if you want to get through something, it's going to be up to you. If you want,
right.
If you want to get through that fire, if you want to get through, you're either going to let that, it's simple as you're either going to let it win or you're going to win. And it all is up here, right? You determine the outcome. And you were talking about earlier, what's in your control, what you can control right here. And it's just, Sandra, your story is absolutely, it's absolutely amazing. And I'm going to add, to kind of sum everything up, I want to ask this question.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah,
no one is going to save you. No one is going to save you. When no one is going to save you, you have to take responsibility and you can't be a martyr. You can feel sorry for yourself for a short time. I did. I felt sorry for myself a lot and that's okay too.
Wow.
But don't live in it. Don't live in the martyrdom. Feel it because it's a reality. You can't help but feel sorry for yourself. Like, what the fuck was I dealt this hand for? But I don't live there. My story, I tell my story because it helps to heal me. And that's what I encourage my clients to do. And that's my mission, is to help as many women as possible and hopefully more in the future. But you have to kind of focus on a little bit first. But I want, because I'm a woman and because I know how hard it was, is, you're nurturing natural as a woman and you want to take care of people and you want to fix everything, but you can't. Daniel said to me when he was dying, he says, you saved me so many times. You have no idea. You saved me so many times. There were so many times where I felt like I'm going to leave this world and you saved me. You researched, you did this, and you bought the supplements and you got me better. And I didn't go on medication. I didn't need to because you saved me, because you did the research, but you can't save me anymore. That was hard. That was hard.
Yeah. But so I don't even need,
save it.
I don't even need to ask the question. What I was going to ask you was if you could sum up how people get through it, how people work through all the pain and the suffering, you just did. So I don't even have to ask the question.
Oh, I'm psychic.
Hey, add that to the list of you being a badass warrior, right? I have to
Well,
say the other thing too is I know from this I'll be reaching out to you again, Sandra, because I want to talk to you, and I mean not even broadcast it, but more on a personal level. You talked about anger being a silent killer, and I'm going to tell you what. Yeah, yep, I absolutely agree, and that'll be another story for another time. But I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your just this genuine delivery, and just appreciate who you are. Sandra, if people want to get a hold of you, if people want to talk to you, what social media platforms are you on? How can they reach out? How can they connect with you?
um, I used to be on Facebook all the time,
Okay.
but they don't take stuff seriously. So I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I've been on LinkedIn for just over a year, and that has been, I mean, that's how we met, right? And
Yep.
that's how I've really been able to tell my story, and
Mm.
people embrace it and are moved by it. Like people on Facebook knew my story, but it just was more of a story. It wasn't like a real life.
Yeah.
So that, and my website is sandrajwilson.com.
Okay.
So I offer, excuse me,
You're fine.
but yeah, I'm a crier. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of crying. I can't believe I made it all the way through. That's a miracle. But then it was like, oh, all
Hey,
that emotion filled up. So
absolutely, and it's 100% a-okay, right? It's I firmly believe that we actually need more of that, especially us guys. We need more of that, embracing our emotions, letting them out, because if we keep them trapped in, just does bad shit, right? Especially up here.
absolutely. But you're
Sandra,
doing a lot on that end. You're doing a lot on that end. And that's one of the reasons that I connected with you, is because you're doing so much for men in what I do for women. And maybe it's not exactly the same thing, but it is in a way. Like we're trying to get people to get the stigma of being like what you look like and what you go through. People don't know. Like people see me as, happy and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I am. I'm a happy person, but you don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Like you just don't. You
great.
just don't. And but I could go. I think I talk a lot, but hopefully I said something that will make a difference in someone's life, because I went on and on and on. But thank you
No,
so much for the opportunity.
absolutely, absolutely, and I'm sure that I know your message definitely resonated with me. Like I said, I'm gonna go back through this and take a lot of notes. Audience, I hope that you enjoyed today's Way of the Warrior with Sandra Wilson. Please, if please make it a priority to reach out to her, to connect with her, to start talking with her, check out her website, and see more about what she's about, and the good and the proper messaging that she is bringing out and putting out into this world. Once again, thank you for being here tonight. All right, I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll see you soon.